The first thing I realized when I opened my eyes was that my best friend had been doomed to suffer in this world, and no one gave a damn. The second was that I had a choice. Either watch him break or burn the whole damn system to protect him. America wasn't supposed to look like this. Not the America I knew. Skyscrapers still stabbed at the sky, yellow cabs still rushed down Manhattan streets, and people still carried Starbucks cups like sacred artifacts. But underneath the glossy surface, the rules were warped. This was the Omegaversian alternate version of reality where biology defined destiny, and freedom was just a pretty word no one actually meant. And in this cruel design, my best friend, Evan, had drawn the shortest straw. He was an Omega. I remember the first time I saw the mark on his neck, faint and trembling like a bruise that never healed. He tried to hide it with hoodies and scarves even in the sweltering summer heat. But I wasn't blind. I knew. Everyone knew. And in this world, it meant his future wasn't his own. Evan wasn't built to fight. He was soft-spoken, with a crooked smile that looked like he was apologizing for existing, and hands that shook whenever someone raised their voice. But what no one else saw was the fire beneath that fragile frame. He wanted to live, to be more than a designation stamped on his skin. He just didn't know how. And me? I was an alpha. The kind of alpha that this world expected to dominate, to claim, to control. But I had never wanted that, not from him, not from anyone. I only wanted my best friend safe, alive, free. So when I woke up here, armed with the bitter knowledge of what was supposed to happen, that Evan's life would unravel in tragedy, that he'd be broken by the hands of an alpha who didn't love him, I made a vow. Not this time. Not on my watch. It started in the middle of a lecture hall, NYU's cavernous auditorium echoing with the drone of a professor who didn't notice half the class scrolling TikTok under the desks. Evan sat 2 rows down, shoulders hunched, his hoodie pulled tight around him despite the early September heat. The late afternoon sun streamed through tall windows, casting halos of gold around his blonde hair, but his expression was storm clouds. I could feel it from here, his unease, his fear. A group of alphas at the back whispered to each other, their eyes cutting toward him. Predatory, calculating, like Evan was prey. My fists clenched on instinct. When the class ended, I pushed through the crowd before anyone else could get near him. He startled when I touched his arm, his blue eyes snapping up to mine. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might run. Relax, I said softly, lowering my voice so only he could hear. It's me. Recognition flickered, and then relief, but it was the kind of relief that hurt to see, the kind you get when you've been holding your breath too long and finally gasp for air. Jake, he whispered. My name. My anchor. I wanted to pull him into my arms right there, in the middle of the lecture hall, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not while every pair of eyes here was watching, ready to twist something pure into something dirty. Instead, I offered a smile I didn't feel. Come on. Let's get out of here. The city was alive with noise as we walked side by side, his steps small and careful, mine steady and protective. People brushed past us, lost in their own worlds, but I never let anyone come too close. I stayed between Evan and the crowd, an unspoken shield. We ended up at Washington Square Park, sitting on the edge of the fountain as a street musician strummed a guitar nearby. The water sparkled under the sunset, and for a moment, it almost looked like the world wasn't broken. Jake, Evan said finally, his voice small. Do you ever wish you could be someone else? The question cut deeper than I expected. I looked at him, really looked at him. The way his fingers twisted the hem of his sleeve. The way his eyes darted like he was afraid of the answer. Yeah, I admitted. All the time. He blinked, surprised. But you're an alpha. You don't have to wish. I almost laughed, bitter and sharp. You think being an alpha makes it easy? You think I want to be shoved into some box where everyone expects me to control, to hurt, to take? My voice dropped, raw. I don't want that. Not for me. Not for you. Evan's lips parted like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, and I saw it crack in his walls, the weight he carried pressing down. I reached out, brushing my fingers against his. Just the lightest touch. But it was enough to make him stiffen. then slowly, cautiously, let his hand rest against mine. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was survival, connection, promise. And in that touch I silently swore again. I would rewrite his fate, no matter what it cost me. But the Omegaverse wasn't a place that forgave defiance. By the end of the week, whispers had spread across campus. Alphas sneering about how I was wasting myself on someone like him. Betas avoiding him like he carried disease. Professors side-eyeing him when his scent spiked in stress, as though biology made him less worthy of education. The worst part? Evan heard every word. One night, as rain hammered against my apartment windows, he finally broke. "I don't understand why you're doing this," he choked, standing in the middle of my living room with tears streaking down his face. "You're an alpha, Jake. You could have anyone. You could have a normal life. And instead, you're stuck protecting Masamion, who's just going to drag you down." I crossed the room in 3 strides, catching his wrists before he could pull away. My voice was a growl, but not at him, never at him. "Don't you dare say that. You are not dragging me down. You are the only reason I'm standing." His breath hitched, his eyes wide, shimmering. "But I'm broken." "No," I said fiercely, pulling him against me, feeling his small frame tremble against my chest. "You're not broken. This world is." For the first time, he didn't fight my embrace. He sagged against me, silent tears soaking through my shirt, and I held him tighter. If I could have wrapped the entire world around him, I would have. That night, as thunder rolled over the city, something shifted. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of a fragile, dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, there could be more than tragedy waiting for us. And I swore to myself, with his heartbeat echoing against mine, that I would fight this world until the end, even if it killed me. The following morning, Evan didn't speak. He just sat at the edge of my bed, knees drawn up, hands clasped tightly together like he was trying to keep himself from scattering in the wind. I brewed coffee, the bitter aroma filling the apartment, but it didn't matter. His silence weighed heavier than anything in the world. Finally, I set a mug in front of him. He stared at it as if it were a foreign object. "Drink," I urged softly. He obeyed, and I watched him sip slowly, eyes fixed on the swirling liquid as though it could hold answers. I wanted to tell him everything, that I wasn't just his friend, that I didn't care about what anyone thought of us, that I would go to hell and back for him, but the words stuck. "Fear, not mine. His." "You know," I began carefully, sitting beside him on the bed, "there's a chance we could change things, not just for you but for both of us. This world is cruel, yes, but cruel doesn't mean unchangeable." He laughed softly, bitterly, almost as if it were a defense mechanism. "Change things? You're an alpha, Jake. You think anyone listens to alphas who break the rules?" I smirked. "Some do, and some don't need to listen. They just need to see it done." His eyes met mine then, and for the first time there wasn't fear. There was curiosity, something like hope. Weeks passed. The city's chaos became our battlefield, and every day was a tiny war against the fate forced upon Evan. We learned the rules of the Omegaverse the hard way. Alphas who claimed Omegas for control, societal whispers that could ruin a life, and the constant reminder that the moment Evan's scent spiked, danger followed. But there were also moments that felt human, real. One night, walking back from a late study session at a quiet 24-hour diner, Evan shivered in the cold, the wind tugging at his hoodie. I wrapped my coat around him, my hands lingering at his shoulders, and he leaned into me without hesitation. "You're ridiculous," he muttered, but the words were soft, almost a whisper. "Ridiculous is my middle name," I teased, though my voice lacked humor. My heart was hammering because he was close, so close, and then his hand brushed mine. Just a fleeting touch, but it was enough to ignite a spark I couldn't ignore. His eyes met mine, searching, questioning, and maybe even wanting. "I'm scared, Jake," he admitted, voice trembling. "Of them, of this world, of me." "You don't have to be scared," I said, gripping his hand. "Not while I'm here, not while I breathe." I'll make sure no one ever hurts you again. He looked at me wide-eyed, and for a moment, I saw the Omega beneath all the fear, the person who deserved love, care, and freedom. It didn't take long for the first confrontation. A group of alphas cornered us outside the library, sneering and circling like wolves. I felt Evan tense beside me, and I didn't hesitate. Alphas were supposed to dominate, but I had something stronger: purpose. You've been sniffing around someone who isn't yours, one of them growled, stepping closer. And you've been forgetting your manners, I countered, my voice low and dangerous. I placed myself between him and them. Step any closer, and you'll regret it. The alpha smirked, reaching toward Evan, but I moved first. A shove, a glare that could slice steel. And just like that, they backed off, snarling but leaving. Evan's grip on my arm tightened. Jake! I pulled him close, brushing my forehead against his. See? Not so scary. You're safe with me. His breathing slowed as he melted against me. And for the first time, he kissed my hand, not out of politeness, but longing, trust, and maybe even love. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Our bond deepened, moving from friendship to something neither of us had fully named yet. There were stolen touches, late-night conversations, and moments of laughter that felt forbidden in a world that demanded despair. One afternoon, Evan collapsed in the library, exhausted from trying to suppress his heat during a particularly tense class. I scooped him up in my arms, ignoring the gasps and stares. He clung to me like I was his lifeline, and I felt a surge of protective fury that was almost primal. You're mine, I whispered against his hair, and no one will take you from me. He lifted his face, eyes shining, lips trembling. Jake, I think I'm falling for you. The words hit me harder than I expected. Not with fear, but with something brighter. Relief, joy, desire. I cupped his face, tilting it gently, and kissed him. It wasn't long, it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Fierce, tender, dangerous, necessary. Life in the Omegaverse remained complicated. Not everyone accepted our connection. Some alphas still eyed Evan like prey. Some betas whispered cruelly, and the world remained biased and oppressive. But we had each other, and sometimes that was enough. We trained together, Evan learning how to defend himself, me learning to temper my instincts for control. There were nights we stayed awake, tangled in blankets and each other, sharing secrets and dreams we'd never dared to voice. And slowly, the city around us didn't seem so threatening. One rainy evening, we sat atop the Brooklyn Bridge, watching the city lights ripple across the water. Evan leaned against me, his head on my shoulder, my arm around him. Do you think we can actually change things? He asked softly. I kissed the top of his head. We already are. One day at a time. One fight at a time. One touch at a time. He smiled, shy but real. And I realized in that moment that love wasn't about grand gestures or defeating the world in one blow. It was about surviving the day together, choosing each other even when the world demanded otherwise. Then came the night that tested everything. A rival alpha gang had heard about Evan. Threatened by his presence, by our defiance, they cornered him in an alley. I didn't think. I ran, heart pounding, instinct screaming. They moved to strike, but I met them with a combination of rage and strategy, keeping them at bay long enough for Evan to slip free. We ran, rain-slick streets reflecting neon lights and our hurried breaths. He was soaked, shivering, but I held him close, shielding him with my body. You'll never touch him again, I growled, more promise than threat. I swear it. Evan's lips pressed against my chest, a mix of gratitude and something deeper. Jake, I trust you. I held him tighter. In a world built on fate and biology, trust was everything. Our relationship blossomed after that. We moved into a small apartment together, decorated with our combined messiness and warmth. No one could dictate who we were to each other anymore. Evan started working at a small publishing house, pursuing a dream he'd buried under fear. I continued my studies, focusing on social justice in the Omegaverse, a subtle rebellion against the rules we'd been forced to follow. Every morning, I'd wake to find him beside me, still breathing, still alive. Every night, I'd fall asleep with his hand in mine, a quiet affirmation that we were both here, both surviving, both fighting for more than society allowed. One night, as the city slept, he curled into my chest. "I never thought I'd be happy," he murmured, voice muffled against my skin. I pressed a kiss to his hair. "You deserve it, and I'll make sure you get it. Always." For the first time, Evan laughed, not bitterly, not quietly, but fully. And I realized that all the battles, all the fears, all the darkness we'd faced had led us here to this fragile, radiant happiness. Love wasn't easy in the Omegaverse. It wasn't safe, it wasn't simple, and it wasn't guaranteed. But it was ours. And that was enough. As the city lights flickered outside our window, Evan looked up at me, eyes shining, and whispered, "Jake, thank you for not letting me break." "I won't ever," I replied, pressing my forehead to his. "Not now, not ever. You're mine, Evan, and I'm yours." He smiled, a quiet, unstoppable smile, and for the first time, I truly believed that the world could bend, not break around us. We lay there together, hearts beating in tandem, holding each other against a world that had tried so hard to tear us apart. And in that simple, human moment, I knew we had won. Because love, real, defiant, unyielding love, was stronger than fate, stronger than biology, stronger than any cruel twist the Omegaverse could throw at us. And we would carry it forward together forever. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.